Chapter 1. Island in the Swamps. The swamplands of southern Louisiana were and always will be a place of mystery and danger, inhabited only by indigenous unknowns living their entire lives in a predator-infested, Spanish moss-covered paradise with no doors. Even though each year thousands of tourists, captivated by the idea of a thrill, flock to the multitude of tours promising to deliver on their desires, they never truly experience the raw nature behind the swamp's deceitful veil of temptation. With alligators, black bears, cottonmouth snakes, and koi-poo river rats the size of small dogs, the American jungle beyond the shores remains untouched by the outside world. Past the eerie waterways and rotting swamp shacks, generations of masterfully hidden secrets and supernatural happenings are abundant, protected, and rarely, if ever, understood. The unnerving intimidation of the swamps is the foremost attribute allowing the Deep South to remain on its own isolated, unattainable plane, even though the bustling, Gothic, archaic metropolis of New Orleans flourishes only miles away. Sunday, April 13, 2014, 1 a.m. Northeast of New Orleans, deep within the Honey Island swamp, along the rugged shoreline and through the gnarly cypress trees and brush, dozens of flashlights were visible in the darkness. Armed men with dogs were on the hunt, trudging through the forest and wetlands as they searched for a human target. Dressed in chest-high rubber waders and heavy yellow jackets with reflective striping, they embodied the essence of wild animals. Ruthlessly excited and naively engrossed in capturing a suspect they had never seen, not one man ever stopped to think about the dangers surrounding him. Outside the swamps, these men were civil servants of the law who controlled unruly citizens. Inside the swamps, the lawmen had turned into bloodthirsty Nimrods who craved the rush of the kill. Transformed by the primal nature of the wilderness absent on the urban streets of New Orleans, they were, in those moments, even more vicious than the carnivorous animal predators they failed to realize were also hunting them. Police airboats appeared and soared over the untouchable waters with huge spotlights tracking the perimeter while a helicopter hovered in the misty night sky illuminating the view from above. Consumed and entranced by the chase, the officers forgot the promise that had really led them to become so enthralled in a sport that was inherently unnatural. Instead, they darted every which way without the slightest understanding of their manipulation or the concept of a goal, led only by the mob mentality lifetimes of displaced thought had them accustomed to by the proxy of social heredity. And it had all been instigated by a single man. A man who could manipulate human nature with the simple snap of his fingers. A man who took it upon himself to portray a helpless lamb as a raving wolf in the eyes of desperate men with guns. A man who had selfishly taken advantage of the effects handed down from generations of the followers of the flock, as he liked to call them. A man who had knowingly placed his victims in a position where some would never see their families again, while he waited safely on the shore. Undetected by the searchlights and escaping in a different direction, the object of the hunt appeared in the water through the steaming mist. Blood spattered with her face beaten and bruised, Madeline Knight, 30, was beautiful, tall, and athletic, with light caramel brown skin and long wavy brown hair in a ponytail to her waist. Thigh-high in water, she waded through the marsh, dressed in a tight black military cargo leather jacket and black leather combat pants. She wore a long, shimmering black crystal St. Benedict rosary around her neck and carried 2 shiny handguns, one in each of her bloody, gauze-wrapped hands. For the first 29 years of Madeline's life, she had only lived for the present time, for the earthly world, and for the desires she wanted. She had pushed the horrors of her past so far out of her mind, she merely survived despite them instead of heeding prophecy as a result. Years of denial could have made any human cold, and she had hopelessly waited for a better tomorrow that never came. But one treacherous week of earthly hell had changed her entire life, even though the events leading up to that week were, as usual, long and tedious with the ever-present threat of impending doom. In the back of her mind, she always knew her day of reckoning would come. She just didn't know how, or where, or when. When Madeline reached the deepest part of the marsh, her perfectly shaped body encased in dripping wet leather arose from the duckweed-covered waters and like the rosary glistened in the moonlight. After securing her weapons in the tactical leg holsters strapped to her thighs, she navigated through a thick forest of trees and brush. Once on the other side, she could see a small swamp island through the hazy fog in the center of an expansively deep river. No more than 20 feet in diameter, the island looked like a serene oasis with only a single tree rising from the center of a grove of low-lying vegetation. It was the second place she was to go, the place that would mark the beginning of her long-awaited freedom. Over the loud buzzing of the cicadas in the trees above, and over the rows of hissing snakes coiled on the shore refusing to enter the very waters they inhabited, Madeline could still hear the sounds of the men who hunted her. But fear them she did not. The sincerest sense of calm washed over her body, and only one thought came into her mind. The last words voodoo priestess Heloise had said to her. It is a mortal sin to forget the end of your life is always on the horizon. Whether or not you choose to accept that fact will either determine your fate or lead you to your destiny. For Madeline, it was far more one than the other. Now there was a queen's ransom on her head, and she finally knew who she was. As she made her way into the river, with sparkling eyes no longer of this world, even the predators of the swamps were nothing more than yellow, watchful eyes, parting to make way for her exit.